he is my inspiration, and he will be yours as well. Mr. Steve Henry. Cool little thing for you, and this being breath of life Lord, Steve.
First of all, thank you all for being here tonight. That video was actually something that I have a younger brother who does not have CF, and he's very talented. And I asked him if, for my 40th birthday, which was in August, if he could do a video that was about my life. And he's kind of an overachiever, and so he went way beyond what I thought he would do, and I think he literally spent all summer on it. It came out with a great video, and he couldn't be here tonight, but have to make sure to give credit to him for that. So I'm very, very honored to be this year's honoree, and I'm following in the footsteps of many wonderful CF patients, all with unique stories, all with amazing courage. Ronnie Sharp is one of them, who was in the welcome video. So, as mentioned in tonight's program in my bio, I've lived in Tucson for over 23 years. I started my career with Northwest Exterminating over 11 years ago, and for the last 8 years, I've held the position of controller for the company. I also married my beautiful wife, Mindy, 11 years ago. So a lot of great things happened 11 years ago. Not to mention 8 years ago and 5 years ago with my kids over there. So shortly after the wedding, we bought our first house in the Rita Ranch area. And for a while, we only had our fur kids, 2 dogs. And eventually, we welcomed our first child into the world, Eloise. And then we started thinking about a second child. And in anticipation of this, we sold our first house and bought our second house in the Vail area. And the following year, our son Nathan was born. And we now spend our time at soccer games and dance practices, school plays, graduations, all the wonderful things that come with being a parent. So the story that I've just told you is a familiar one, right? Many of us pursue a career in our 20s and 30s, and many of us choose to start a family. So in many ways, I'm very similar to many of you here tonight. However, because of CF, I'm also very different. So going back to high school, I graduated in 1994. But I didn't graduate college until 9 years later, and I do not have a PhD, or even a master's degree for that matter. I ended up in the hospital after my first semester of college, and it was around that time that I began being treated for anxiety and depression. And this is something that is very common in cystic fibrosis patients. And following that, I actually quit college 3 different times before I ultimately finished. And to be honest, at that point in my life, in my early 20s, it was hard to envision a future. Back then, I always felt like I was going through the motions of being, quote, normal, but I really didn't believe that I was, or I didn't feel like I was. And anxiety and depression is still something I struggle with today. Since starting at Northwest Exterminating 11 years ago, I've been hospitalized 11 times. It's kind of a strange coincidence, but that's actually the number. In 2011, which was by far my worst year, I was admitted 4 separate times, totaling almost 70 days. The longest continuous admission that year was longer than a month. And I have to acknowledge Dr. Dane's, where are you sitting? Oh, there you are, okay. So Dr. Danes was one of the people that was really taking care of me during that time. And after being in the hospital for about 30 days, I was a little bit at my wit's end, and Mindy was there with me, and Dr. Danes came by, and I said, I asked her, I said, I need to ask you a question. She said, okay, and I said, do you think what I said is, do you think this is the beginning of the end? And she said, no, I don't. And I said, I was a little bit doubtful, and I said, okay, but if you did think that, would you actually tell me? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. So thankfully, she was absolutely right, and it was just a bump in the road. It was a big bump, though, and it was one that was a little bit difficult to get through. I was in the hospital when my son turned 1. We had a great birthday party at Diamond Children's lobby. If anybody's looking for a great venue, it's, you know, there's worse places maybe, I don't know. I was also there during the shooting at the Gabrielle Giffords event. She was treated at UMC, and I was there during that chaos. There was a period of time where Mindy and I kind of stopped buying tickets for things. You know, we would go to plays or a concert every once in a while, and because I went through a period of having that bad string of events, you know, we ended up giving away tickets to stuff a couple times, and then we were like, all right, you know, we're making friends happy with free tickets, but you know, let's just stop for a while. We had the pleasure of celebrating our anniversary in the hospital. That was our 7th. And again, if you're looking for a great venue for an anniversary celebration, the cafeteria at what is now Banner is actually, you know, it's not terrible. So we had a candlelit dinner there, actually, the battery-powered candle. I don't know if they like fire in the hospital, so. Almost every time I'm admitted, I bring my laptop, and I do work from the hospital, and I don't always want to, and no one is forcing me, but staying connected to all the things in my life, this is what helps me cope. So as far as home life goes, I'm the first one awake in the morning, around 5 a.m. during the week. And I'm almost the last person to sleep around 10 o'clock. In the morning, I do albuterol, which is an inhaled medication that opens up the airways, for anybody that's not familiar with all the specific treatments. I also do 7% saline, which helps thin the mucus. And while I'm doing that, I'm doing my best, which there was a brief clip in the video about that. Basically just a machine with the tubes hooked to it, wear a literal vest, and it shakes at high frequency and helps dislodge and loosen the mucus. At night, I do the same thing all over again. And then I also, at night, I add Pulmozyme, which is another inhaled medication, which also helps thin out the mucus. There's also an inhaled antibiotic called Caistin, and it's prescribed for use every other month. So when it's my on month, I do that 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And during the week, I do that sitting at my desk at work, and everybody's kind of used to it, so it's not too strange. As far as pills, I take about 25 Creon, which are the digestive enzymes, per day, and a bunch of other pills and supplements. I check my blood sugar at least 4 times a day. I hadn't really mentioned until this point that I have CF-related diabetes, which is an additional perk of getting older with CF, and as a CF patient and you're an adult, it becomes a little more common as time goes by. So in terms of that, I have to count carbohydrates when I eat and program that number into my insulin pump, which delivers the right amount of insulin. And then every 2 to 3 days, I have to change my insulin pump, refill it, reattach it to my body. I was fortunate to be part of the phase 3 clinical trial for Orkambi, which Dr. Daines mentioned. And that started in 2013. And as she mentioned, it was just recently approved in July of this year. So that's a great thing. And it's actually, what attracted me to the study is that it's a pill. And if you have CF, and we have parents and people with CF here, I don't know if we have any other patients or not, but you start to dread more inhaled medications because everything is inhaled. And everything that you inhale takes 10 to 15, 20 minutes for each thing. And so when Dr. Daines told me about a pill, I jumped at it, and it was the first time she successfully convinced me to do one of the clinical trials. And I'm glad I did. So sometimes having CF means making sacrifices. And sometimes what that means is that I miss or I skip reading bedtime stories to my kids because I know that doing my treatments and getting a little more sleep is going to buy me more time with them in the long run. I spend countless hours over the course of a year on my way to work and on breaks talking to insurance companies, dealing with pharmacies, making sure I get everything I need. I worry about getting a cold because it can sometimes land me in the hospital for a couple weeks. And that's 2 weeks of missed time doing what families should be doing. I'm careful about my days off work because I want my employer to see me as reliable. And I already know at the very beginning of the year, I'm going to be out a certain number of days for doctor visits. And in a typical year, I'm going to be hospitalized. So I always have that on the back of my mind. In fact, I'm at the tail end of a cold right now, and I called out sick yesterday from work, and I'm really proud of this. I don't know when the last time I could say this was, but yesterday was the first day this year that I had called out sick from work. So that was a pretty big deal for me, and I didn't want to do it, actually. But again, sometimes making sacrifices is the right choice. So what that meant yesterday is that instead of doing my best 2 times, I did it 4 times, which altogether takes a couple hours. But I didn't have anything else to do, right? Because I wasn't at work. So, this is sometimes the reality of having CF. Having said all of this, whenever I tell people my story, I'm very careful to explain that I'm one of the lucky ones. Even though everything I just described probably sounds like a lot, I've been extremely fortunate. I'm standing up here at 40 years old with an FEV1, and this is a measure of lung function, for anybody that's not familiar, an FEV1 in the low 70% range, and that number would be the envy of many CF patients, many of whom are younger and some older. So I'm very lucky, and to be honest, most days I I feel really good. So the thing that's most unfortunate is not all the things that I've described, but that so many other CF patients have not had or did not have the opportunity to experience even half of the things that I have. I've personally known too many people with CF who have left us too young. Cystic fibrosis used to be known as a childhood disease. Thankfully, it's moving away from that. And as Dr. Daines described, with the dedicated help of the CF Foundation and its supporters and all of you, amazing research has been done and new medications have come out, and it's happening quickly. And I believe that some of these new medications are what helped me bounce back when I had that bad year in 2011. And there's more exciting things on the way. But this is not enough. My hope, and again, I know we have parents that get CF in this room right now, young kids. My hope is that children with CF today never have questions about their future. I hope that young children with CF today move into adulthood with CF behind them instead of a daunting challenge in front of them. We can't stop the work and the research until a cure is found, and that's why we're all here tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting CF.
I tell you, you bet. You guys, those of you that are familiar know the battle that he has gone through. How about that, huh, Steve? Thank you so much. We're going to do something real quick. If I can have the spotlights turned down a little bit, the house lights turned up. If you could, find your bid cards real quick. Come on up on stage and take that photo, please. Please. If I could have you locate your bid cards real quick. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to ask you to give from your hearts. You know, part of tonight we bid on silent auction items, we enter for a raffle, we do many things. But what we're going to do now is to ask you to give at a level that's meaningful to you, to help patients like Steve, to help people like your children and people that you know that are fighting that daily battle with cystic fibrosis.